All right. Hello, everyone. It's Kristen Thomas. I'm so excited for today's live. We're going to be interviewing one of my incredible clients, Hope. She'll be joining us in just a minute and unveiling how she, within the last 3 months, actually less than 3 months, was able to more than double her highest revenue months ever. This is a huge win. I've been so excited to get her on live, you guys. She has an incredible story and I think it's just going to be so inspiring for so many of you. So whether you're watching and you've kind of been stuck at a certain revenue level in your health coaching business, or wondering, how the heck do I get out of where I'm at now because everything feels really hard, everything feels on me, feels like I'm starting from scratch every single month, whatever it is, we're going to be diving into that and really having like a mini training here in my interview with Hope around what she did exactly to double her biggest monthly revenue months ever and what she's up to next. So, as you guys pop on here, say hi in the chat so that I know you're here. Facebook doesn't tell me who is joining. So, say hello in the chat so I can see you. And as we go along, once Hope joins, if you guys have any questions for either Hope or I, just drop them in the chat, whether you're watching live or on the replay. So let me know you're here, and we'll give Hope just a minute to get on here. Facebook's been a little bit laggy today, so I apologize that we're a couple minutes late, but we'll get started in just a second here. And yeah, let me know in the chat what you're looking forward to hearing about today. We'll definitely be doing some Q&A. So like any questions that you guys have right off the bat, or any questions that you have as we get into our interview with Hope, we'll get into them. All right, let's just get her on here. One second, you guys. All right, technical difficulties. We're just trying to get Hope on here. Give us just a minute. All right, we've made it. Hey, Hope.
Hey,
Technical difficulties today.
I know, we made it.
We made it. That's all that matters. I'm so glad to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your page.
Yes, yes, we have a good crew already here.
Awesome.
So yeah, you guys, as you're getting on, say hello. So we've got Tina, we've got Dina. Welcome, welcome, you guys. So excited to see you all. Okay, let's dive right into it. So Hope, why don't you just take a minute to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it, and then we'll get into the interview.
Yeah, so I'm a certified holistic nutritionist. I'm an FDNP. And I also, where I am now, I have a brick and mortar Pilates and fitness studio. And I've had my brick and mortar studio for almost 10 years. And then I've been doing well, I started out doing nutrition coaching, and I did that for a couple years before I went in to like really dive deep into holistic nutrition, and then eventually getting my FDNP. And I've been an FDNP for about a year now.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah, I love that you have both your brick and mortar practice and your online functional practice.
Mhm.
And that's really a big part of what we've been working on together.
Mhm.
So, why don't we get right into? I'd love to celebrate your huge win that you shared with me at the end of last month. So, why don't you share with everyone what that was and like why that was so big for you?
Yeah, so last month I hit my biggest month ever, just a little over $12,000. And before, I mean, the biggest month before that I had was about 6,000. And that was, I mean, it wasn't like a consistent 6,000. So and that's, why I jumped into working with you, was just for that consistency, that consistent growth and consistent like leads and clients, and just getting that going on a regular basis. And so, yeah, for me, it was huge. I mean, like knowing what's possible, I think is the biggest thing, like seeing like, okay, it is possible. You hear all these people making, their 10K months or 15K months or whatever, but like, and I know I had messaged you before. I messaged you, I was like, okay, like, cause I was kind of doing the math in my head, and I don't do my numbers to the end of the month, cause I don't at least for this particular business. For my other business, I do it more often. But for this one, I'm like, I'm just going to wait to the end of the month. And I knew I had been selling clients, and I sold my highest priced coaching package ever that month. And I'm like, I feel like I'm well over $6,000. And then I did the math, and I'm like, I feel like I'm going to be around 10. And then at the end of the month, it ended up being a little over 12. So it was huge.
That is huge. Yeah. And what would you say were some things that helped you to get to this point? So like, I mean, doubling your biggest revenue month ever is obviously a really big deal. Like, what do you feel like were some of the initial things that you were able to implement or shift in your business when we started working together that got you to this place in such a short time period?
Yeah, I think I felt like I had the strategy down for the most part, but there was some pieces missing. And I'm a manifesting generator, and so I don't always thrive with a lot of structure. And so
Yep.
for me, it was like working with you on kind of like, okay, where can we kind of put structure, but more of like a flexible structure?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of a little bit of structure around like social media and like posting and something content. Like I was kind of all over the place with the topics I was posting about. And I felt like, okay, I need a more cohesive way to kind of put these things together. And so it was kind of working with you and coming up with a way to have a little bit of structure with like flexibility built in. And then I think the other big piece was kind of, we did kind of the initial like cash infusion call for some ideas, like, where's the low hanging fruit? Like, what are the things I'm not doing to draw people in? And I think, well, two things really. One of the things I think was the follow-ups. And I have been really hesitant to do the follow-ups. I know we talked about it a handful of times because, I've done follow-ups for a while, and I just felt kind of just, about following up with people. And, we talked about it, and you take, such a, heart-centered approach to it where it's like really out of service and not out of like needy energy, and so being able to kind of shift my mindset around that, and really not feeling obligated to follow up with maybe every single lead that I have, but the ones that I really feel led that are like these are my soulmate clients. Like these are the people I really feel like I could help, and that really, desire my help, rather than just falling in with everybody who mentions interest, where it's like a lot of them are going to be dead ends because they're not really like, they're not really looking for the help that I'm willing to give. So it's kind of the mindset shift around that. And then two, the referrals thing was huge for me. And so we kind of worked on, a referral script and kind of reaching out to my clients. I ended up getting a couple of referrals out of that, which was pretty awesome.
That was amazing to hear those pick up so quickly for you.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I love that. And so yeah, it sounds like, and you're so much like, a lot of other clients that we work with inside of our mastermind, where it's like, you're not new to business. You've been in it for a while. I mean, especially with your brick and mortar, like you're an experienced business person, right? And so, a lot of the strategies, you've done a lot of it. But it came to a place, like you said, where like you really need to kind of pull it all together. There's just a lot of kind of things that weren't necessarily like tied together. There wasn't like as cohesive of a strategy of how are we doing the right things together to get to where we want to go. It's sort of just let's throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks kind of thing, right? And that's so common too. And especially bringing it back to human design, right? As manifesting generators, as you and I both are, we very much have to be following in the moment. And that's where, the kind of the shadow side of that can be that we end up doing too much, right? Yep. We are all over the place because we're just almost too excited to the point where it's not strategic anymore. Right. And so it sounds like it was just kind of the being able to like see the bigger picture and make sure that everything you were doing was actually going to get you to where you wanted to go, so that it felt more in flow. And then especially just like really grounding that into your energy to make sure the flow works for you, that the messaging works for you and everything. And in my opinion, that's one of the biggest things in business that I think a lot of other, coaches, mentors and such can miss, is starting with the strategy first and not the human being first, right?
Totally.
Because as we talk about all the time in our calls, like there's oftentimes not a business problem. It's a personal problem that's showing up in business, whether it's a lack of direction or confidence or whatever it is, right? And so we always start with the person of what's your human design, what's your lifestyle, what's your personality, what's your voice and tone, what's sort of the vibe, what's your mission, what's your values in your business, like starting with that. And then we can piece together any strategy we want and it'll work. But when you try to do it the opposite way of forcing a strategy to work for you when it actually doesn't, that's where things just get really sticky and doesn't work, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I've worked with other coaches before. I've done a bazillion other programs, and I think that's what really I mean, that's really what sets you apart and what sets your programs apart. And, I've had conversations with people about this too, is, because I've tried all the things everybody says, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. But it never didn't feel good to me. Like it didn't feel right for me. So, I mean, that's totally the difference maker, is understanding yourself. And I was already familiar with human design, but the fact that you like totally integrate that into your programs is huge. Just understanding like my business doesn't have to look like somebody else's business, and I can run mine in a totally different way, and that's okay. And like you're saying, the strategy comes once you understand like how you operate, and then you can kind of build the strategies around that, which I love.
Yeah. And so much of that is really kind of breaking the norm of what it looks like to build a business. Like, you, I, all of our clients, we're building businesses in non-traditional ways. And that's why you guys are getting those rapid results that you do, because it doesn't look like what everybody else is trying to do in the industry, but either burning out because of it or struggling or spiraling. It's just a totally different way of operating that's really grounded in you first and getting clear on that, and then having the right strategy. So it's very different, but it works. Know who you are.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So kind of pulling that together then, like what are like how would you say that you've fundamentally shifted how you show up in your business over, just the last couple of months?
Yeah, I feel like I'm able to be a little more consistent with like which, I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty consistent person, because I do like the routine of knowing like, I'm going to post and what I'm going to talk about, that kind of thing. But I think there's more structure around that piece. And like, I'm not going into it blind. Like I have a little bit of structure where I'm not like scrambling, like, oh crap, what am I going to post or what am I going to talk about today or whatever. Like there's a little more structure. So I have kind of a little bit of direction, like you're saying, not just like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks, which I am, I've done that for a long time, but I like having that little bit of structure to kind of help keep me grounded and kind of at least have a direction. I think too, it helps me show up a little bit more confidently, because I know what I'm going to talk about. I know kind of the direction I'm going. Like, we did quarterly planning, which again, as a manifesting generator, I am not good at planning very far ahead, but at least having like a little bit of direction where it's like just kind of the overall like bird's eye view, where it doesn't have to be all the specifics, but it's like, this is the topic I'm going to focus on, or, the top or this is the strategy I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with this. So, but having just kind of those big pieces in place, and where I can have the flexibility to kind of maneuver and change my mind as, my energy kind of shifts, but just having that in place. And I do feel like I can kind of plan more confidently, knowing again that it's okay for me to not have the whole year planned out, that I can plan just little chunks at a time. And it just makes me feel like I have more space to be creative and think and work and that kind of thing.
And I think you touched on something really beautiful, and it's that balance between like the feminine and masculine in business, right? The masculine is the structure, the strategy, the doing, and you need that to actually get results in the business, right? And then there's the feminine side of more of the feelings, emotions, the flow, like all of that. And both are important, right? And you really need to have both in business. I think most people end up either on more of like one of the extremes where, oh, I'm only running my business from a feminine flow, and then there's really no direction or structure at all. And then, just kind of meandering and hoping eventually you get to where you want to go. Or that hardcore masculine of, I'm just going to be up in my mind the whole time, do. Doesn't matter if it doesn't feel right to me. I'm just doing anyways, right? Yeah. It's kind of more that robotic, like numbing out sort of way to run your business. And ultimately, when we go back to what we're here for as entrepreneurs, it's not to numb out and hate what we're doing or follow what somebody else blindly told us to do. It's to actually love our business and love our life and love what we do, right? And so that's where I think the fusion of seeing like where the feminine is important to bring into your business and what that guidance has to tell you, but then also where the masculine is really important to kind of hold the container for that feminine. And when you bring that together, that's where things really start to skyrocket.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that all of the programs I did before, I mean, all of them were basically geared towards masculine energy. It was like this structure, do it this way. This is how you do it. This is how it works. And I had done so many of those. And earlier this year, at the beginning of the year, I'm like, I'm not doing any more programs. I'm like going to figure out what I want to do. And that was kind of my goal. But then I kind of went to the other end of the spectrum, where kind of the more feminine, where it's like, I'm just going to screw it. I'm just going to do what I want to do today. And then tomorrow I'll do something else. So it was, just kind of went the total opposite. And so, yeah, I think with you being able to help with a little bit of the structure where you're not telling me like, hey, you need to do things this way, but let's build a little bit of structure around that. So it's the perfect balance of the feminine and the masculine, and not feeling too rigid, and having that flexibility to kind of move and shift as I need to, which I love.
Yeah, yeah, and that's beautiful. And I've been in a lot of those masculine masterminds too, especially the ones who are led by all men, and they mean well and it's great. But when you realize what your flow is and that you need more of a balance,
Mm-hmm.
it really kind of becomes like an unlearning. I had to spend a
Mm-hmm.
long time unlearning a lot of the
Yep.
masculine, more aggressive ways of operating, because that's what I was trained in for so long, right? I
For
think so
sure.
many of us are. And again, it's not to say that that's bad. We need the masculine in the business, otherwise stuff doesn't get done.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when it's too extreme on one of the
Right.
ends that you either end up in burnout or you end up just spiraling and not getting to where you want to be at
Right.
all.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Um, and I wanted to pause real quick. So Tina had a comment here on getting clear on messaging and avoiding niching down for a decade now. So, I mean, one thing to consider, Tina, if you're still on with us, is that like again, we talk a lot about human design in our programs, and not really even just from like a woo woo kind of level, but really just grounding into who you are. And the truth is that I don't know what your human design is, but some types actually are not meant to niche down. You're actually meant to be broader, whereas others do really well with niching, right? And then that can really determine everything in your business, from your programming to, do you have generalized programs versus specialized programs, to your messaging. Are you speaking to more of a general, like a higher level problem, or really niche down topics and individuals? And then obviously your sales too. So like it really trickles down from that. And I hear that so often from people because there's such a strong kind of like pressure in the business space, so to speak, around needing to have a niche, right? And I thought that for the longest time too. But once I got into human design many years ago and realized those nuances, it just was completely eye-opening. And that's really what we help our clients understand too, is like, are you meant to niche? And if so, to what level? And then how does that ripple effect into your business? So, Tina, it could either be that niching in some way is meant for you, but kind of finding that sweet spot of what that looks like for you, or the resistance to niching down for over a decade could maybe be your human design speaking to you and saying, hey, we're not meant to. So I don't know which one it is. Without looking at your human design chart, I'm not sure. But that would be a really interesting thing to dig into. So just wanted to share that.
I like that too. And I will say from experience, I was the same way. And I've done other programs, like for nutrition coaches and health coaches that were that way, where it was like, you have to find your niche and you have to define it. And I knew that I wasn't supposed to, because I'm a manifesting generator, and I already knew that about myself, and I kept fighting it. And so that was a big one for me too. And kind of like you're talking about unlearning and like deconditioning, like that was a big one for me too. And I loved that piece of your program where you weren't like pressuring me to pick an audience or pick a niche. And so that's definitely helpful to understand, how to approach your marketing and your business in that way.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad that was so helpful. Yeah, we never believe in forcing anybody into anything, because again, like that's just that masculine pressure. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool.
Yep.
So you mentioned, that what some of the key things you felt like really helped you to double your revenue was the structure of just kind of like putting everything more cohesively together, and just kind of, grounding into your human design and really just seeing what that flow looks like. Is there anything else you wanted to mention that you feel like kind of also helped you to get there?
I think for me, it's, the follow-ups and the referrals were huge for me, but I think the most important piece of the follow-up, I think, was kind of like leading with service and like having that mindset around it. Because like one of my clients, for example, I did a challenge, I guess about a month ago. And, me and you were talking because I didn't have a huge response like in my challenge. And so I'm like, how can I engage people? Like, how can I get clients from this? And it was the follow-up, and we worked on like sending messages to people, like just sending voice memos and just getting like feedback from people. And that led to a client. The girl didn't even do the challenge, but the fact that I had sent a voice memo to check up on her, like, hey, did you like the challenge? And it led to a client. So just like going from that, like leading with service, where it's not out of like I said before, like that needy energy, or out of like, I'm forcing myself to do this because I feel like I should do this. But it really is like a tuning into yourself. And I think that's the piece that's so big for me that you help lead us with, is kind of tuning into yourself. And how does it feel? Like, how do you feel making this decision? And kind of feeling into your own energy when you're kind of figuring out what direction to go. And that's been huge for me, just kind of navigating that and like leaning into my intuition on a lot of these pieces.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up because that's, again, that's so, it's a big reframe for how you think about those big like marketing and sales pieces of your business is that like, I believe that sales is service. And the
Mm-hmm.
moment that my prior sales mentor shared that with me, like everything about my perception of sales changed when I realized that it doesn't have to be about just getting the sale or just getting the revenue or just like trying to hustle or look ingenuine in your business. And I think that's just especially true in the health and wellness space because we're all givers, we're all healers. We just want to help people, right? And that can still happen. Like you can still make abundant sales while being in service. It doesn't have to be one or the other, right? And so it's like, how can you look at something like doing reach outs or doing sales, not as like, oh, I'm only talking to you because I want
Mm-hmm.
money. It's how can I be here for you first and foremost and help you see how much I care about you and getting better because this is literally my vision. And oh, side benefit, if you happen to sign up, cool, I'll get some money from it. And that's great. But when they feel heard and you're holding that space for them and they see just how much you care, that's when they start to pay attention. But when
Mm-hmm.
you come across first and foremost with that needy, grabby, salesy energy, they're going to run for the hills,
Yep.
right? So it's just that little mindset shift even. So I love that you
Mm-hmm.
brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, Kai, sales is service. So good to see you
That's
on
right.
here. Sales is service. And I even posted about that for those of you who are watching right now. I posted about this a couple of days ago, actually, because we did a deeper dive training on this inside of our mastermind around how to really shift how you show up in your business from a service place to ultimately increase your sales, but from that really authentic place. So if you guys haven't listened to that, you want to kind of or watch that and want to dive deeper, definitely check out that post from earlier this week. Okay, so Hope, as we wrap up, how would you summarize, what it's like to work with us in like a statement or so?
Well, I'm not good at saying things short and sweet, so I'll probably get too wordy, but um, I think for me, the key is, I think you summed it up well when you were talking about the masculine and the feminine earlier and being able to incorporate both of that into your program. Like I think I messaged you this when we first started, and it was after maybe the first or second call. And, I didn't know anybody, but I just felt like, just being on the first call, it was like, I found my people. Like, it's people who are like heart-centered and soul-led, and, they're spiritually minded. And we're all, like you were saying, like, we're all just doing what we do out of service. And everybody, like, cares about each other and supports each other and encourages each other. There's so much positive energy in this space. I think that's the biggest thing. And I've been in a lot of containers before, and I've met some great people, but I feel like the energy is so different here just because everybody has this kind of soul, like spirit minded energy that they're putting forth in the group and that they're leading with in their business. And I think that's the piece that I've missed in the other groups that I've been in, where it is a more like masculine group container and it's a more masculine strategy. And again, like you say, we need both, but I think being able for you to present both, like in a coaching group and a mastermind, is just huge, and just helping us be able to tap into that piece within ourselves, like having a human design coach that helps, and being able to tap into that piece in of ourselves to bring that out in our business too, I think for me, it's the game changer, just putting those two pieces together.
Yeah, I really appreciate that reflection. Yeah, and that's why we're so intentional with who we bring into our programs because we've really intentionally cultivated the community to be in that way. And honestly, sometimes when I look at just how amazing you guys are at supporting each other and being there and inspiring each other, sometimes it gives me like an out of body experience of, is this really, our group? Because you guys are just so amazing. Like I love seeing the Zoom chats light up when you guys are supporting each other on calls. If one of you is having a rough day or had a bad sales call or whatever, you guys are in there giving each other advice of here's what worked for me, or here's what I did, or here's, something that I learned, or whatever it is. And I just think that's so beautiful because even though you all are health coaches and functional practitioners, none of you come at it from a place of competition of like, ooh, I'm going to keep my secret safe to me because I don't want you to have it. It's, hey, we're all in it together, and we recognize that today's disease epidemic is way bigger than any one of us to possibly tackle. And if I can help my peers, we're really going to rise together and help everybody together. And I just love that you guys are just so fiercely committed to supporting each other. It's so beautiful.
It really is.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, what would you say to anyone who's watching this who might be considering working with us?
I would say this sounds so like salesy. I would say just do it. I mean, honestly, again, I worked with a lot of people. I've been around the block a few times, and I mean, honestly, I will say I've never felt more like um, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but I've never felt like I fit into a space more than I do in this space with other people. Because like you were saying, it's basically back to what you were saying. There's no sense of like competition or anything like that in the group, which I've been in groups where it is kind of, it just doesn't feel like, you know, with people who are sharing their struggles and their concerns like vulnerably. And that to me, it's like being in a container with, you know, a bunch of women where you feel okay being emotional and sharing things that you're struggling with is huge. And I've never really felt, you know, safe enough to do that in a group container. And so like, I feel even in this, you know, I haven't been in the container as long as a lot of the other women, but being in there even for a short time, feel like I feel comfortable. I feel safe, like sharing and being open and accepting, you know, insight from other people. And I just feel like just the energy and the environment is reason enough to do it. Even if you weren't teaching strategies, which you are, and your strategies are amazing, I think just being in the energy of what you're providing is like reason enough to do it. And just to be in a container with such a bunch of amazing women. And two, and I think it's just an added bonus. I say added bonus. I mean, it's huge that you provide the strategies that you do. And the fact that, you know, if you don't have an answer, you'll go find an answer. You'll, you know, make another Google form to share with us. And there's constant trainings and constant learning on marketing and strategies to combine with like the feminine side of it. So, I mean, it really is the best of both worlds that, I mean, I don't think anybody else kind of has that combination of the masculine and the feminine and providing that in like a business coaching container like this.
Thank you. I received that. Yeah, that's so special. And I know, you know, you and I were talking for a couple of months about you joining the mastermind. And when you finally came in, you were like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to have found my family and to be here. So what would you say to anyone who's, you know, kind of like sitting on the fence or maybe delaying getting in touch or getting into something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the longer you wait, the longer, you know, you're going to miss out on what is offered to you in this container. I mean, I hesitated for so long, and, you know, the investment kind of had me like, you know, I don't know if I should do it or not. But it's, I mean, the minute I did it, it was like, I knew immediately, like, this is like, I've never like worried about the investment. I've never worried about the payment. I've never worried about like, oh, am I going to get my money back kind of thing. And I've felt that probably in everything I've ever invested in, like, how am I going to get my money back? But it's just, I mean, it's like a no-brainer. Just the immediate feeling of being in the container and being supported and being so like strongly supported by you, and that you go out of your way in every possible way to make sure that you feel supported is, I mean, it's something you can't find. So I would say if you are on the fence, like, the more you think, the more you're going to sit there and think about it. It's just kind of going with your soul and going with your heart. And if your heart's like kind of tapping you on the shoulder, like this, nudging you along, then that's a sign that it's something that you're meant to do.
Yeah, and we hear that from a lot of people that like they just had this knowing, this feeling that they just wanted to be a part of it and needed to be in it. And, you know, the other thing we look at too is like, you know, what are you leaving on the table by not getting
Right.
support in your business, right? Like you were leaving on the table 12K months for maybe sometimes getting 6K, right? So like, what are you, you know, struggling? What are you continuing to let yourself struggle with or accept as your normal of, oh, I'm just going to continue to figure this out on my own. But really deep down, you know that you're not getting the revenue or things aren't turning around or you're not supported or you have a billion open-ended questions in your mind. And what's, you know, the tax on that in your mind?
Right.
And what do you have, you know, on the leaving on the table? I mean, a couple of weeks ago, and some of you here might have watched this too, we were interviewing our other client, Angela, who had an amazing revenue month. And she's been at 30K months basically ever since she has been working with us. But prior to that, she was making between $4,000 to $6,000. So she was leaving upwards of $24,000 every single month on the table by not having the right support in her business. So I'm the first to admit, I know it can be scary to invest in your business and yourself. I mean, I've made like $65,000 investments in year-long masterminds, which our program is nowhere near. And I just get how crazy scary that can feel sometimes or how much of a stretch. And what I realized is when I stepped into those things, I quickly skyrocketed because A, I knew that's what I needed and I couldn't afford not to have that. And B, I just deeply trusted that, like you said, like that instinct, that feeling, heart of like, this is where I need to be. This pulls everything together.
Yep.
And even when I joined that $65,000 mastermind, even though it was so scary and such a stretch for me, it had everything I needed. And within 2 months, I skyrocketed to my first 20K month, the month after that, 30K months, and then so on and so forth. So within a couple of months, the entire thing was paid off already. At such a high dollar amount. And we're always about that with you guys too, of what's the cash injection? How can we make your money back? How can we, just make this a massive ROI multiplier versus so many other programs out there that, take your money, they, funnel you into a process and say, good luck, hope it works for you. Like, we're really on your side and we truly want you guys to get those results, because when I hear you say that you've had a 12,000 plus month, what that tells me is that that's so many more people that just got helped. And like, that's what we're about, right? Like, the money is great, the numbers are cool, but ultimately it's the bigger picture of all of those individuals just got help that might not have before, and the ripple effect of that, of their family, their friends, their colleagues, whoever, either just getting inspired by them getting healthier and maybe making a change or two. And that's awesome. Or maybe some of them refer and end up working with you, whatever it is, like, that is the ripple effect that I'm all about and you guys are all about. That's how we make change in the space.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So as we wrap up here in just a second, do you have any last bit of inspiration you want to leave anybody with who is just maybe struggling in their business right now, like not even like about working with us, but just something generally inspirational you can leave them with today?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to what we were talking about before with just kind of being able to integrate the masculine and the feminine, I think the best like service-led businesses are that perfect combination of masculine and feminine, and being able to tap into that is, I mean, for me, that was the game changer of being able to tap into both of those and have a good balance. And so I think it's, combining the structure and the strategy, but also having that like feminine flow of allowing some flexibility and creativity. I think just kind of finding the mix of that and being able to tune into that piece is really, I mean, that's really what starts to change things.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I'll also add on to that, like any of you, if you're like feeling some sort of, instincts about your business of how you should or shouldn't be running things, really listen to that, right? Like, the body doesn't lie. The mind could lie, but the body literally can't lie. So if you're feeling super uncomfortable with something, or like something's just not right, or you just really don't know where to go with something, trust that and either honor that or ask for support for whoever could support you with that thing. Because like, your mission and your future clients are all in line with that, and you deserve that support. So thank you, Hope, so much for coming on. I know you have to go. I so appreciate your time and sharing this. I hope this was inspirational for all of you who are listening here, whether you're watching live or watching the replay. Drop a comment so I know you were here. I'd love to hear any takeaways that you guys have. If you want to drop them in the comments too, and if you guys have any questions for Hope or I, just let us know in the comments, and I'm excited to hear from you guys. If any of you are interested in exploring what it looks like to work with us, we do have multiple different programs and levels of support. So just simply send me a DM and we'll chat a bit and see if you might be at a place where it makes sense for us to talk about working together. And if so, we can talk more about what that looks like, but we don't do any hard sales or pressure tactics or anything like that. Ultimately, I want whatever is best for you, whether that's with us or somebody else. So reach out if you're not sure what your next step is, and would love to chat with you guys. All right, well, thanks, Hope, and thanks everyone for
Kristen.
coming.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.